I'm Chuck Newberg. I'm a professor of mathematics. This is not a talk I normally give, but it is a topic I feel pretty strong about, and that's be an outsider. Welcome. This is the first colloquium. So let's thank you for attending today because, you know, it's the start of the semester. You'd like to get on a good roll on getting these points out, and that's a good start. You don't want to try to get the last three colloquiums in. You want to get the first three in. So a couple of housekeeping items to begin with. There will be a QR code at the end of this presentation. You'll scan that in with your phone, and that will be how you get your attendance points, participation points for this. And participation by audience members is encouraged and generally makes me a better presenter. My students will tell you I am better when you ask me questions than I ever was as a lecturer. So, all right. So let's start with some introductions here. And I just want to go around the room real quick and just give me your first name and your favorite outdoor activity, G-rated. I don't want to know anything about you that's going to make me wonder about you later in life. So I want everybody really quickly here, get your favorite outdoor activity, whatever it is. And we'll start way up in the back, up there, and the guy in the sunglasses and the good-looking shirt there.
I'm Riley. My favorite outdoor activity is scuba diving.
Scuba diving? Let's just go around there.
My name is Tasha. I like to go paddleboarding.
Paddleboarding.
My name's Liz, and I like to take my dog to the dog park.
Excellent.
My name's Jackson, and I like to bike.
Bike? Touring or dirt?
I just like a mountain bike.
Mountain bike, all right.
My name's Jose, and I like to play basketball.
Basketball?
My name's Jaden. I like to go to the lake.
What was that?
Go to the lake.
Go to the lake, all right. Next row up.
My name's Kayla. I like to fish.
Fish, all right.
My name's Brad, and I like to
Hunt?
My name's Alexis, and I like to
Hike?
My name's Allie, and I like to road trip.
You like to what?
Road trip?
Road trip. I like road tripping too, especially for good food.
My name's Caitlin, and I like swimming.
Swimming?
My name's Jasmine, and I like camping.
Camping?
My name's Peyton, and I like soccer.
Soccer? All right, let's start here in the front row, right over here.
My name is CJ and I just like basketball.
Basketball.
My name is Andre and I like Missy.
What was it?
Missy.
Weightlifting. All right.
My name's Molly, and I like to golf.
Golf.
I'm Brent. I like to ride my Harley.
Ride Harley. Softail?
Yup.
All right.
I'm Sage and I like to ride four-wheelers.
Four-wheelers?
I'm Jason. I like to hunt.
Hunt. Let's see. Let's come over here.
I'm Kaylee, and I like to do archery.
Archery.
My name is Yoshi. I like soccer.
Soccer? All right, let's see. Back here.
My name is Philip and I like to fish.
Fish?
My name is Don and I like fishing.
Fishing?
My name's Sam, and I like going on nature walks.
Nature walks?
My name's McKenna, and I like camping.
Camping?
My name is Lauren. I like golfing.
What was it? Golfing?
Golfing. Yeah.
Golfing?
My name's Carlos, and I like to go to the lake.
Lake?
My name's Kyla. I like to go hiking.
Hiking? Let's go right here.
Oh, I'm Kitty. I like fossil hunting.
Fossil hunting. All right.
I'm Tyler. I like to ride my horse.
Horse? Is that what it is? Right.
I'm Sean. I like to ride my Harley.
Ride your Harley. So, all right. So notice we had a real diverse group of outside activities we all enjoy. So that is awesome, by the way. So, all right. So my name's Chuck, and my favorite activity is, and I'll let you guess at the end of this presentation. So now, outside activities can be anything. Here's a little fun. I forgot how fun it was to play Foursquare. We played Foursquare last year after, I think it was halftime, I don't remember, the Super Bowl game or what. That was so much fun. You know, sometimes just going out and doing one of those other activities you haven't done in a while, like playing Foursquare with some international students. I don't know if you can, it's hard to see there, but we're all smiling and laughing at this. We had such a great time playing a little outside Foursquare, and I hadn't played Foursquare in probably 40 years. At least 40 years, maybe longer than that. So, all right, so what's a colloquium to begin with? So it's a broad academic discussion led by a specialist on a subject. So supposedly I'm a specialist on being an outsider. And so I'm not going to get into like details like oxygen rates, how it makes you feel better and all that stuff. But we'll just have a general talk about being an outsider. So, and to me, discussion means presentation, questions, answers, all intertwined. So if you have a question, you see a photo and you want to ask a question about it, feel free to interrupt me. Some of this is going to just look like Newberg's home slideshow, because it's, first off, I don't normally give this talk, and the guy that gives this talk has all these great photos of Southwest Wyoming. I don't have as many, but I have some cool photos. So we are working on a program here called Being an Outsider. Western Wyoming and the surrounding areas are perfect landscape for all types of adventures and outdoor enthusiasts. Whether you like to hike, bike, fish, or camp, or get involved on a local level, there are plenty of activities for all seasons. I never thought we'd stay here when we moved here from Idaho, because I'm a tree guy, I'm a whitewater guy, but I have found that the desert here in Southwest Wyoming is paradise. First off, you're going to discover we live in one of the least populated counties in the country. We live on the checkerboard. What's the checkerboard? Where the railroad went through, you got UP land, you got BLM land, you got grazing land. So it's kind of wide open. That's why the people with the four-wheelers, you can go all over the place, right? Those people on our bikes, we can go all over the place. The hikers, we can go all over the place. We live in a unique place versus most other places. You go to Laramie, you're always trying to figure out where the private land is, where the public land is, and so forth. The eastern side of the state, same thing. So, all right. So, my story and lessons learned. Surely there's something up there that I've learned, you know, with this gray beard and the hair blowing there. This is a picture off the Middle Fork of the Salmon River last summer. It was really windy, and just sitting there thinking about things. So, some of my early adventures. My family was not an outside family. My parents were golfers, but that was about the only outside activity they did. But I was lucky that I had a close friend whose dad was an adventurer. And so here it is. This is 1973. We're hop on this RV bus. This was an RV bus. His dad owned a company. They specialize in turning these into RVs. Check out, I know it's a little small there, but check out that vintage 1970s with the white loafers here. We're having dinner here. The dads are making the dinner in the bus there. We're doing our little, who liked the road trip? Who's our road tripper? This was my first experience to road tripping, and you know, it hooked me. You know, my parents didn't go places. Golf course and the grocery store was about it for my family life. So, and down here we are as little kids sitting around this guy. This guy's name's Swede. He was missing a pinky, and he was the best storyteller. This was the guy that probably turned me into wanting to be a storyteller. He would tell these stories, and he had us convinced, and this was the 1970s after all. Their tires were not made as well in the 70s. He had us convinced that we had to stare out of this RV all the way up to Canada watching for snipes, because they jump on the tires and tear off your tires. And there was little kids, we were sitting there. But I really learned the importance of a good story from him, and I used that in my river guiding days. So, and here is the first documentation of me applying first aid. And what I learned as an outsider was it's always nice to have a well-built first aid kit and know how to use it. And it's in my blood to help fix people and bandage them up. It's what, on river trips and outdoor activities, it's one of the things you have to be able to do. So, all right, sorry those are a little small. So we'll skip ahead to college. You don't need to know about junior high and high school. I was a dork. After all, I'm a math teacher, so there had to be some dorkiness there. And I went to the University of South Dakota as an accounting major, and I was a good student. I found the transition to high school was rough. For me, I had a void in I was a three-sport athlete all through high school. I always had something going on to take care of all that extra energy I had. It was either football or wrestling or tennis, and then in the summer I played baseball or softball, depending on how old I was. So there was a void in my life. And then one day I read an ad in the Volant newspaper. That was the student newspaper. This was the equivalent of social media those days. So you looked at the school newspaper, and I saw an ad for the Big Ditch. I got an introduction to the Big Ditch here. This is that's me right there. And these are 6 college students, and there's our instructor here. And we're off to the Kaibab Trail. Anybody know where the Kaibab Trail is? This is the Grand Canyon. So it was my first backpacking trip. It was spring break, 1987, and it was my first backpacking trip. There we are hiking there. You can see it's a pretty rigorous hike and stuff. And here we are. Didn't know any of these other classmates, any of these other trip mates. This guy was from East LA. He had an interesting background. This guy here, we call him Big Will, and he was from the Crow Reservation in Montana. Funny guy. These two were a couple, and he was the only South Dakotan on the trip, and I grew up in Iowa. So diverse group, but what we learned was you could meet people, interact with people, and really learn a lot about each other having dinner together. It was an amazing time. So, all right, so that hooked me on backpacking. That gave me a purpose while I was at the University of South Dakota. It suddenly gave me a focus. I mean, I would focus on getting all my work done so that 2 weekends from now, I could go backpacking. And here's some of the early backpacking trips. This is in the Black Hills of South Dakota. It was a long ways from Vermillion, South Dakota, the University of South Dakota. It was a 7-hour drive, but I would work really hard to get everything done and make sure my professors know that I was going to miss a day. And they understood. They saw a big improvement in me, actually, in my math classes when I started having an outlet for all the energy I had. Here is another backpacking photo. This is up in Eagle Cap Wilderness in Oregon. It was smoky that year. And I had established along the way that first backpacking trip, I'd run into a group from Grand Junction college students, and I'd talked to this guy about this, and I had this goal at that time, and I was always going to do a 100-mile backpacking trip. I didn't meet that goal, but that was a great goal because it motivated me to stay focused. It really gave me a purpose to kind of like, I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to go for this activity. Closest I ever got was an 80-miler, and then something happened that led me astray. So I went off to the University of Idaho. I wasn't the best student, but I got into grad school. And in grad school, I was a math major, but I met this gentleman right here. His name is Mike Beiser, and he runs the outdoor program at the University of Idaho. And he was an amazing person because he taught the outdoor classes, and he could fill in all of those little holes that I had because I didn't grow up in the outdoors. He filled in, he educated us, he taught us skills. You know, here we are in Lookout Pass in northern Idaho. We're digging snow pits to evaluate avalanche conditions. You know, you just don't go out and start backcountry skiing without understanding how to read avalanches. So I learned from there. Here's one of my first important lessons I learned in life, winter camping. Always make sure you take care of your clothes because I left these wool pants out. They're actually frozen rock solid. Such a cold day that day. It was an important lesson to learn about making sure you take care of your own gear. So, all right. So then after I went to the University of Idaho, I discovered you can get some cool jobs if you read the university paper. And I got my first crazy job #1 here. And my first job in Idaho was working at the Lost Packer Mine. It is right here. This is the Frank Church Wilderness. It's the largest wilderness area in the lower 48 states. That is about 100 miles into the wilderness. It was a long, windy drive to that mine. And it was way out the side the box. I was a city kid, grew up in Sioux City, Iowa. And so here I am living at 8,500 elevation and working at an underground gold mine in the summer. And being an outsider, interesting thing. Here is, I had to fly in late. My father had a heart attack, so I had to go home and visit him. And so I got dropped off at this airstrip out in the middle of nowhere. I sat there for almost an hour. What was I going through my head? Well, 1, I don't even know where I was at. 2, I don't even know if they know where I'm at. And 3, I don't even have any food. So, because I just had clothing and all that. But they eventually came and picked me up. This was the scene from the mine. If there's nothing more outside than this here. And this, you know, you've seen the meme, could you live a month for $1 million with no internet, no phone out in the middle of nowhere? I'm waiting for somebody to give me my million because I have already done it. This was the cook shack. And yes, we did have an outhouse. So I've done all that. So, all right. So a little bit of me. Here's me working underground here. I got to drive the train. How cool was that? You know, I was hired to be the surface worker, but they moved me underground real quick. Just another shot underground there. And just so you know, I don't know if you can, it doesn't show the best, but that is kind of gold looking color. That's our ore there. This was high grade ore. It's copper, gold, and silver all mixed together. And I used to think when I was filling my pockets full it was worth something, but it was like 50 cents a pound. So you had to mill it out. So, and just these are the ladders we climbed up each day. And the answer to the question that everybody wants, where did I get my calves? Climbing these ladders every day, 150 feet of ladders to get to work. So, all right, so I worked at this mine. I got more comfortable living outside in nature, and unfortunately, I would have stayed at that job forever, but the vein pinched out. So then I needed another job, and if you know me, teaching is my passion, but I can't do an 8-to-5 desk job. I worked at Wendy's. I've done all the fast food stuff. And so I got I still have more here. So the cool thing about the mine was we played hard. So this is after 12 days there. So we got a basketball picture for you. So here we're playing basketball. This guy actually played at Montana Tech, but he didn't know how to play mining basketball. So I beat him most of the time. I was pretty proud of that. But check out that hoop. Dirt floor. I think we're playing in hiking boots, and you can still have fun even if you don't have the best equipment. It's just about having fun out there. So, and some of those games got pretty brutal. Shoved each other off into the rocks and all types of fun stuff. It was no fouls called game. So then after the vein pinched out, I moved on, and I got my second crazy job. Although I don't know if this one's as crazy as the mining job. I became a river guide in Idaho. And it was interesting about river guiding because, one, I learned a lot more about teamwork because not only did I have to take vacationing people down the river, but I had to work with 18, 19-year-old guides. I'm 25 at this time, 26. And so, we learned about teamwork, talking about how we wanted our trips to run, talking about how we were going to make them perfect because we were always working for the tip. You got your guide wages, but it was the tip at the end of the day. So you really did have to hone in on some teamwork and make sure everybody was on the same page, make sure we had the right equipment. It was amazing how much planning goes into an outdoor trip. So there's another one there back when I had a wild hair. So little these people know, to be a guide is almost no training. So because what do guides do? They go down the same river over and over again so you get good at it. But I actually have probably better training now than I did when I was actually a commercial guide. So after all of this though, this actually led up to this here. This is a college class. This is me teaching whitewater rafting for Western in 2 years ago. And I was able to parlay my outdoor side of my skills into something on my resume that made me more attractive. By being an outsider, I was able to put that on my resume, and when I got interviewed here, that was one of the perks actually the two perks for me why they decided to look at my resume, because my undergrad grades were terrible, that whole University of South Dakota experience. The two perks they liked about me was I've been an underground miner, so that made me fit in with the mining community around here, and I could do rafting. So, and then over here is one of my favorite all-time pictures of my family there. That's my youngest. He's like 5 in that, he's 7 in that picture. He's 10 in that picture. And this is Howard's Plunge. It's like a 15-foot waterfall, and it is so much fun. So, all right, so I played around with river guiding, and then so eventually I came to Western and got a job, got a family and all that. So now let's talk a little bit more about the outside adventure. Stuff happens. So when you are going on an outdoor adventure, you should kind of always be prepared mentally for stuff happening. Now, if you're golfing, probably not as much, but you have to worry about lightning storms, things like that. let's see here. What were some of the other activities? Hiking. So on the hiking, what do you want to need? You need to make sure, one, you know where you're going. Two, you have a reliable vehicle. And three, somebody knows where you're at so that if you do get lost, we know where, send the search and rescue party. So there's always those inherent risks. And so here's some stuff happening here. So here is, you see here we got a kayaker here. There I am swimming, and what have they thrown there? It's a little small, that's a throw rope there, and I'm being rescued here. And there you can see I've got the rope, I'm pendulating over the shore there, and there I am emptying my kayak. For a brief period of time in my life, I tried kayaking, and that's when I became known as swimmer, because I mastered the 360 roll. And think about that, the 360 roll. That means I'm upside down, and where do I finish on my roll? Back upside down. I literally could roll over, get a breath, go back underwater. Roll over, get a breath, go back underwater. And so I always had to be prepared. Now, as an outdoor person, when I'm taking the swim, I always have to think, am I prepared to swim through that last piece there if they don't rescue me? You know, you always got to think about those what ifs as an outsider. So. And I just thought that I needed another slide there. There's me after a ski crash. So my crashes are pretty epic. People cheered on the chair on this one. So you can tell I'm a little snowy there. So outsiders, we live, I don't know if you realize this, we live in a mecca of mountain biking. Southwest Wyoming, you know, you hear about Moab, have great mountain biking trails, and they do. We have just as good, but less crowds. And so this is just me. This is over in Williams Peak in Green River. If you've ever ridden the trails over there, they have some amazing trails over in Green River. Here's some just outside of town here, my kid and another friend. And then here's the, what ifs there. You notice my bike's down there. I'm up here. And somebody did some trail maintenance, and I was riding my bike. I came up, and I hit a soft spot, and I ran out of speed, and I went over. And that's how my bike landed. Luckily, I just had a little scrape on my elbow there. But that's just another example of the what-ifs that you always have to be prepared for. It's one of the reasons why I like to ride with a helmet. And it's hard to tell there, but I also like to ride with gloves for when you fall over there. So, okay. So, all right. Sorry, this is turning into more just a slideshow than a discussion. But, so some other crazy things here. There's my first time ski jumping. And what did I learn on this one? Don't do stupid things when you're so far out that you can't be rescued. This was snowcat skiing in northern Idaho. And if I would have hurt myself, it was a long ways to anything. We were probably 10, 15 miles in on a snowcat trip, and that would have hurt. Luckily, I didn't hurt myself. And the other thing I learned is if the other guides build it and you destroy it, they get cranky with you. This was the jump. They spent all lunch building it, and then I went off it and destroyed it right away. And they were mad at me. I don't know why. So, and amazingly, this was this was film days. That my wife actually got that photo. I mean, that's not shot. That's shot on a little digital or a film camera. This is one of my all-time favorites. This is one of those ones you want to make sure everybody understands the route you're taking, because this is Big Mallard Rock on the main salmon, and the run is on the right. I went first, and I'm a seasoned veteran. I hit a soft spot and came down the left side. The next guy came down the right side, and then this is my wife's raft. And she saw her husband go left. She saw the next guy go right. So who's she going to follow? The guy that she's been with for 30 years, or the guy that sometimes messes up. So she started down my line, discovered it was hard to do. So she switched over to his line and didn't make the pull. My wife holds the record for running all three lines on Big Mallard. There she is. She took the right side. You can't tell it, but that's my oldest son there. He will fall out momentarily after this picture to the left side. And then this is the college's raft. Don't tell him I took it that year. It goes over the rock. So she managed to get all three sides of the rock there. So, all right. Now here is a college class. Going here. So if you get a chance to take whitewater rafting at the college, we go up and run the Snake River, 7 miles there, everyone does. This is early in the season, so this is lunch counter. And here we are. And does anybody see me in there? This is one of those ones, always check to make sure your equipment's rigged up right. What happened? That tube popped out. I never fall out of the back of the raft. It is so rare for me to fall out of the back of the raft. I was not prepared for that swim, and my students weren't prepared for having their instructor gone either. But yes, there are my feet. That's a classic mistake there. What happened was I put these in wrong when I rigged up the boat, and the pins were supposed to go this way, and I put them in that way. And rookie mistake, but we all make them. And now this is an example. When you're doing an activity, you have to be prepared for the consequences. And this consequence was I had to swim the next rapid. But I was mentally prepared and physically prepared for that. And it was a good swim. And I think I swam the second one too. That one I wasn't prepared for. My students couldn't catch up with me. So, all right. A couple other little ones here. This is early here. This is on the Selway River, which is a major river. And stuff happens. Here we were, sitting there on a rock. Now, what did we learn on this one? All that training that we've done over the years came in handy. You know, half the training you do, you go to these classes, you go to those classes, you participate in this skill, you learn that skill, and half of them you never use. But man, it's nice when you do use them that you actually know them here. We had to set up the ropes, and these two people were freaked out. They were on the rock with me. I was so happy to get rid of them when I just shoved them off. So you're out of here. No, we rigged up a rope and we tethered them down to safety. And then I stayed out on the rock because I was done with them. They were a little freaked. So, all right. And I just put this is the only one I put up full size. This is 2 summers ago. This is a big kahuna on the Snake River. And yes, it is possible to lose your spouse out of your raft there. So that's my wife there. And this was a good run. So, all right. So back to the big ditch. So all these adventures, what you start realizing is the more adventures you go on, the more you want to go on the next adventure. And so the Grand Canyon kept calling me. Now, you've probably noticed what happened in my life. I had the goal of being that backpacker. But what did I discover along the way? I discovered whitewater rafting. It's the best of all worlds. You get to take your stuff down the river, and you get to hike up the side canyons, and without all that gear on you, and you have cold beverages at the end of the day in your coolers. It's so much better than backpacking. So I did make it back to the big ditch, but I didn't make it back on his backpack. I made it back as a rafter in 2013. And so I'll tell you a little bit about this as you're running a rapid. As you're running a rapid, here are what we are looking for. I look for, so this is downstream. I look for downstream V's and upstream V's. When I see a downstream V, that's telling me, oh, there's a clear path. When I see a downstream V pointing down, there's a clear path. I see an upstream V, that's telling me I got to go around there. There's something sitting there in the causing that to be a upstream pointing V. So here is the run. This is lava. Lava is the biggest rapid on the Grand Canyon. There's a couple of bigger waves, but this is by far the biggest here. And so I just kind of a show and tell here. So see a little run here. So I'm looking for V's, trying to avoid some big holes, zooming out there a little bit, trying to avoid that spot for sure. That's a 16-foot raft. So it's 16s and 18s are usually what they do on the Grand Canyon. And this rock right there is called the cheese grater. A lot of people hit that rock and will flip. This rapid actually flips people. I didn't point it out, but the 2 people behind us, they flipped, and one guy came out with no pants on. So that's another thing you always got to be worried about when you're rafting. Always make sure you keep a pair of pants within reach, because you never know when somebody's going to come out pantless. So all right. This was last summer, And this is a nice example of a big whitewater rapid. This is a class 4 rapid on the middle fork of the Salmon River called Tappan 2. And so this is me in the raft here. So this is from the view of the raft. And look, so as I'm going, I'm looking for what? Downstream V's and trying to see any here. Hopefully there's no profanity in the word. I didn't meant to block out the audio. Kind of see that downstream V right there. There's a big old hole. See that big hole there? So I put this one in. You could kind of see that big monster hole on the left. You would not want to be in there. So as you're picking out your adventures, you do want to kind of make sure you're what? You know, you like adventures that challenge you, but you want to make sure that adventure is not going to what? Be so far over your head that you're what? Putting yourself into a dangerous situation. If you don't understand proper clothing systems, you may not want to go out in the middle of the winter at 20 below and do long hikes. And if you've never gone whitewater rafting before, you're not jumping on the middle fork as your first rowing time. You're going up to the Snake River in Jackson. You're taking a whitewater rafting class. You're finding friends who have more experience than you so that you can what? Learn off of them. And you know, how did I become, now I feel like I always hate to use the word expert because one, the two people that seem to drown on rivers are beginners and experts, so I always call myself an advanced intermediate. But how did I get there? I got there by one, going on trips that I was ready for, and two, by going with people I could learn from and experience and gain insights from them. And now it's kind of the reversal. Now I'm taking other people and they're learning off of me. But in the beginning, I was the green person learning and all that. My first Middle Fork trip, I rigged my boat so bad that one of the guys on the trip went down and re-rigged it for me, which is unheard of. You never touch anybody else's raft, but he didn't like how it rigged. He thought it was dangerous, and I let him go for it. So, all right, so stuff to do around here, and there's a lot of stuff to do around here. First off, you'll discover that there actually is some great snowshoeing around here. Within 50, 60 miles of this community, there's so much out there. We're up in South Pass. This is a Boy Scout troop here. I'm over there, and this is one of my favorite spots to go snowshoeing. Cross-country skiing as well. There's some great cross-country skiing stuff around here. Western does rent cross-country skis out. We do rent out snowshoes as well. Floating the Green River is always fun, and especially in August, the river's still pretty warm right now. Here we're floating the Green River. This is a green garboon race. This is a classic example of bad parenting here, by the way. So here I am. This is another college student, and I believe this is my son at age 4, and we are floating down. This is a sheet of plywood, and we got these 5-gallon empty jugs that I've strapped together to make this is a green garboon race. This raft here, the great rafter that I was, it stayed afloat about 5 minutes. And then it just fell apart. So we floated down in our life jackets. I holding this board, this sheet of plywood, which holding a sheet of plywood in current is really dangerous. And then jugs and stuff. And then I don't remember how he got down, but he got down there. And we lost the stop sign. I think we lost the flag, but we made it. But the Green River is fun to float. But I do encourage you, if you go float the Green River, do it responsibly. There are a few spots up there that are a little tricky. So other things, we had a lot of people like to hike. Here's me and my dog here hiking out in the desert. Notice we're dressed for the weather. You can go fishing. Here's one of my other sons catching a fish. I'm not sure if this is the Flaming Gorge or somewhere else. I don't have a lot of fishing here. We do have access to some skiing in the area. It's not in Sweetwater County, but this is White Pine. This is me and my son riding up in the chair together. White Pine's a fun ski hill. If you get a chance, usually the ASU will do a trip up there. If you get a chance to go on one of those trips, go on them. You only get to do college so long, and if you can go on a few of these trips, you might discover that that'll expose you to something that you never thought you'd do before, and turns out to be a lifelong experience for you. So another great shot. This is just walking out in the desert here, busting through some drifts. My dog is somewhere around here somewhere, I'm sure. I love the snowshoeing. This is another peak that I bagged many years ago. And it's just fun to get out and explore, hike to the peaks of these. If you've never hiked to the top of White Mountain, I challenge you to do that one time. It's fun to do at night. And then you can see some amazing stars on the top there. Here we are floating below the Green River here. This was actually river cleanup day. We're cleaning up below the dam there. Believe it or not, this was 5 miles from town, this ice cliff here. I've been here 25 years, never knew it was there, and somebody showed me that. It's kind of a fun little picture. It was really slippery, though. I almost busted my rear end on this ice. Even the dog had trouble walking on this ice, and he has four-wheel drive. So, all right, so have fun. I mean, you get to do college once. Most of us only get to do it once. Some do it twice, but the first one usually wasn't successful. You only get to do it once. You only get to be young once. And have fun is what I encourage. Here we are. This is a Middle Fork jumping rock, and it must have been towards the end of the day or just bad sunlight. So you thought you'd never need fractions, right? Here we go. There's a fraction for you on a ski hill. So you never know when you're going to need some fractions. You know, this is a fun bike ride we did here this day. It was 20 below outside. We were riding our fat tire bikes through all downtown. We had people stopping to see if we needed rides, things like that. And here, you know, I didn't get into talking about the benefits of all this, but look at this. First off, you very rarely will ever see me in a photo where I'm smiling. That is me without the beard. I don't even remember this guy's name, but I remember we had a great trip. It was one of my first Take Friends raft trips, and we had such a great day. Look at how happy you are. You know, meeting friends, getting big smiles on your face. That's what being an outsider is all about there. There is scuba diving in the area. We have some great scuba diving. We have a scuba dive club. These two guys here were doing river cleanup with the raft club, and so they were literally scouring the bottom of the river, pulling stuff up, and then we were grabbing it from the raft. And we brought up tons of broken oars and bottles and fishing lures and boat anchors and all types of stuff. Here's another picture of the college raft trip. It's a very fun little class. We only have to take 6 students. That's a 12-foot paddle boat, so it makes those rapids look huge. And just another shout out for, you know, hiking out in this desert. There are some great hikes from here. And just to point out, this is a nighttime ride, but you get out in that desert at nighttime, first off, you're going to discover the stars are amazing, and there's not a lot out there. So it is possible to go out and rip your bike out at night there. I love that good midnight ride, although I haven't ridden at night lately. So, and then just point out, this is some mountain bike trails here locally. I think that's David Tanner, our biology teacher. He went on one of my rides one time, zipping down this hill here, and then he comes up there. And then I just want to point out, we get some great sunrises and sunsets around here. So it's also those that just like to go out and hike around. It's always nice to do it when you can see them. And then I'll point out, we are getting a new bike path on this campus. And it's right behind the college there. There's the 2 people working on it there, riding it the first time. They got their fat tire bikes. These are actually rentals from the Bike and Trike downtown. And just a quick on there. So that's kind of exciting, especially for students, because that means you'll have closer mountain bike access if you live in the dorms. You'll actually be able to ride right on campus. And so that was a huge excitement for us mountain bikers. So, and just some tips along the way. I feel like if I didn't give you tips, this wouldn't be an educational. Always let someone know where you're going and when you're coming back. It's important because it's easy to get lost in Wyoming. There's not a lot of houses out there. It's easy to get turned around in some of these backcountry roads. So make sure somebody knows where you're at and where you're going and when you're coming back. Be ready to watch for the weather and plan on the weather changing. Storms happen a lot around here. And food and water is a must, you know. And when in doubt, if you're stuck, if your vehicle's stuck, stay with your vehicle. It's one, it's easier to spot from a helicopter. Two, it's warmer. And three, you're not somewhere else. We can typically find that. And the only time I recommend you walking is if you can actually see that paved road or you can see that house. Don't walk, otherwise stay with the vehicle. So, all right, so let's open it up to questions. And I know that was more just me showing you my family slides there, but let's open it up to questions. What do you want to know about the adventures in Southwest Wyoming? Somebody asked me a question. I will go with awkward silence for another 6 minutes.
What's your favorite place to go?
My favorite place to go. That's a tough one. I actually think my favorite place to be is on the back of, here's probably where I am the happiest. And I don't think my family would disagree. If I can get to that slide again. I am happiest in the back of a paddle boat. Even the rowing frame boat here, I'm happy there. But I like being on a paddle boat. I like the interaction. I like the teamwork. I like the challenge of taking a boat down the river and getting it where I want, using those people as my propeller. And I really like that. That is probably the happiest spot I'm at, is in the middle of any Class 4 rapid with a paddle boat. That's a great question. So some other questions. All right, well, sorry it wasn't as much of an academic talk, but at least it wasn't too painful. You got to see some slides of some fun stuff, and you got to see the best cool picture ever taken of my feet there. There's by far not a better shot of my feet than that picture there. So, well,
Where's the rental shop here on campus? The outdoor gear.
Well, I'd say it's right next to Dorothy's Harton office, but nobody knows where Dorothy's Harton office is because she retired. The rental shop is down in the new, well, it's not new anymore. It's down there in the wellness area, or the gym area, down by the dance floors, kind of down there where the wrestling area is, down where the athletics is. You can find the rental shop there. It's a nice rental shop. They have, our rental shop has high quality backpacks, sleeping bags, sleeping pads. They have some clothing for rent, I believe. They have cross-country skis, snowshoes, tents, a bunch of high-quality gear that you can rent for a nominal charge. And so if you're thinking about going backpacking, or you want to go backpacking but you know you don't have a backpack, you can rent from them. And that's actually how I got started at the University of Idaho. I owned base amount, but I did not have all the gear to go winter camping and all that. So we would rent from the rental shop, and that was how I could afford to go on all those trips. I went to Canada one time on a spring break trip for $100, the whole trip. Food, gas, and everything. Now it'd probably be $250 this day and age, but that was cheap for a college student. So the one thing about these outdoor classes and outdoor trips is usually you can do them for cheaper than you can do them yourself, other than buying your equipment. So, all right, that was a great question. Any other questions? So, all right, well, you have plenty of time to make your 1 o'clock. Oh, I need one more slide. Yes. Sorry. I went backwards.
So here's the hardest part of the day. When the QR code comes out, take a picture with your phone. It'll ask you your name and who your first year teacher is. That's the only quiz. Who is your first
So you got to scan this. Western, enter with a passion, leave with a purpose. So you need to scan that in. So I'll give you a moment. Get your scanners out. Thanks for coming today.